Hi, guys. I'm Lynetta Linda, and for any of you who don't know, I'm here today to answer questions and answers, or to answer questions with answers for some of the things that are stumping us nowadays. Okay, so this is a separate show. I will be doing these regularly, questions and answers, and I will also be offering on I think through the Koji link on my Instagram profile, I will be offering individualized questions. If people want to answer or have a question answered, I can answer those as well in a shorter format that's more personal. So I am going to answer some of the questions that I've got in front of me, and I'm also going to be answering questions that are coming through the live feed. So if you'd like to just stay tuned, when I'm ready to take the questions from the live feed, I'll let you know, and then my PA will read them to me, okay? So I've got a couple of questions here that people have sent in. Now I have a whole bunch, and I'm going to continue answering the questions as time goes by. So if you've sent in a question, it will either be answered directly or I will be answering it in conjunction with other questions, okay? I have a question right now that I'm going to start with, and it's from Connie. And the question is, I'm conflicted about whether, when it's love, can you love too much, or are those beautiful feelings really not love? Well, that's a very powerful question, and it's going to take a lot to answer it. So hang on a minute here. So when we're saying conflicted about whether it's love, can you love too much? If we're talking about loving too much, then what we can be talking about is codependence, dysfunctional love, possession, ownership, or bonding through trauma. If we're talking about unconditional love, which is true love, then you cannot love too much. Unconditional love means I love you no matter what. It means I remember one of my kids saying to me, well, I don't love you anymore and I'm never going to talk to you again. And I was like, that's okay. I can love you from a distance and I don't need you to love me in order for me to love you. And I have a few relationships like that in my life where they don't love me, but I love them. That's okay. That is not loving too much. That is loving unconditionally. Now, when we love unconditionally, it means we also hold boundaries, okay? If we love too much, we typically don't have boundaries. And what starts to happen is that what we thought was love starts to hurt. Unconditional love doesn't hurt. While I'm loving these people in my life that aren't seemingly loving me back, I am loving them unconditionally, and it doesn't hurt me. It actually brings me relief in spite of the fact, say, for example, I have one member right now of my circle that I'm not in connection with. And I love this person with my entire heart and soul. I would die for this person. This person doesn't want to talk to me right now, and that's okay. I love them unconditionally. I can accept that. However, this person's treatment of me, this person's behavior towards me has not been kind and loving. So I've had to lay boundaries to create space. It doesn't mean I'm not loving them. It means I'm creating space. And in a way, I'm protecting the love until this person is ready to come back in balance, which means respectfully honoring the connection that we have. Then I can speak to this person again. Okay, so holding the love means loving unconditionally. It may not mean that you're in contact with that person. It may mean that you've had to let things go. You've had to forgive things that this person may have done or said, or things that happened between you. It might also mean that you have to process your own stuff. Was there anything that you did that caused this person pain? Because if you're going to love them unconditionally, even if you're not in contact with them, if you're going to love them unconditionally, then you're going to want to work on the stuff for yourself. For example, is there some area that I transgressed? Is there some area that I need to look at in order to feel good about this relationship? Because if we love them unconditionally, it means we don't hold judgments. We don't hold resentments. We don't take things personally. And I want to remind everybody that only the ego can be offended. Only the ego can take things personally. Okay. So if you're loving somebody unconditionally, you might have to work through some stuff. You may be upset about things, but you won't hold on to it. You'll work through it. Unconditional love means we will always come out the other side, knowing that there may be a difference, there may be a problem between us right now, but we will find our way through it. This also leads to the optimistic attitude. Somebody who's an optimist is actually really somebody who's typically very good at loving, because an optimist recognizes we may be facing challenges and it may be a really tough time, but it will pass. We'll get to the other side. And this is a really important thing, I think, for a lot of us to recognize right now, that it is never over until love is the answer. And when love is the answer, we have loved it free. We've come to that place of balance and harmony. We're talking about unconditional love, which will lay boundaries and may need space and time. We're not talking about dysfunctional love, which needs to take care of, which needs the other person to love us in order for us to feel good. I also don't need, for myself, example, I don't need other people to approve of me for me to approve of myself. This is why working on the inner self is so important. Until we come to a place where we truly love ourselves, we cannot give unconditionally love to another, nor can we receive unconditionally love from another. And many of us, in fact, most of us at this current space and time in humanity's experience, most of us came from dysfunctional childhoods where we were definitely not loved unconditionally. I certainly know I wasn't. It doesn't mean that we don't want to work our way towards that unconditional love, beginning with inside, loving ourselves inside. And you'll find that automatically, the first law of the universe is like attracts like. As soon as we begin to practice loving ourselves, accepting ourselves, we automatically start to see that reciprocated in our outside world. It mirrors, because like attracts like. Remember, we're magnetic beings. If we're in love with ourselves, and I talk about this in some of the other videos, if we're in love with ourselves, we can now be in love with someone else. So if love starts to hurt, it may be codependent, it may be dysfunctional. It may be that you're looking for that person to fill a void that's inside of you. Or it may mean that the relationship, the love connection, has come to a point where it needs some attention from both parties. It may not be able to receive attention from both parties. Perhaps one party is capable and the other party is not. One party may be present, the other party may not be. So in that case, we revert back to unconditionally loving ourselves and finding that peace within ourselves so that we can continue to unconditionally love the other. Now, a lot of the times when I'm answering these questions, you're going to find that there may be little bits and pieces that I could add later or that we could expand on. But for intents and purposes of this show, I'm going to answer the questions in a bit of a broad spectrum. So please take what you can relate with and let the rest go, understanding that there may be specifics and nuances of our individual subjective story that may cause us a few questions to ask around this. And this is a part of why I've set up doing the Koji, I can't quite remember what they are. The people supporting me have set them up. So I'll talk about that or put up, send out an email. If anybody's looking for information about that, let me know. Okay. So I'm going to answer one more question and then I'm going to take a question from the feed. From the live chat feed. And I want to say hello to everybody out there. I really so appreciate your support. I really appreciate your patience too. I've got a full-time thing going on here and finding the space to do everything sometimes isn't always easy, but you guys really are in my heart. I really do think about you all the time. Thank you so much. We can't do this without each other. Remember, enlightenment is a team sport. So I'm going to come to this next question, which is from Sumati, and please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, which leads to the love question. So I kind of wanted to add them together. She says, if one has to set boundaries with someone who cannot be avoided, how does this work? Well, if one has to set boundaries with someone who cannot be avoided, well, essentially what I'd like to say is that setting boundaries cannot be avoided with anyone. If we are not setting boundaries in our life, then we're going to be experiencing challenges in our relationships, in all of our relationships. If we struggle to set boundaries in our home, we're going to struggle to set boundaries in our professional world. If we struggle to set boundaries in our professional world, however, sometimes we may still let me make sure I've got that right. If we're setting boundaries in our professional world, sometimes that's easier than setting them in our private world, because in our private world, there's so many significant connections. Okay. So this is what for me falls under special relationships. And special relationships, as I define them, are relationships where we will tolerate treatment from someone in a special relationship that we would not tolerate from a stranger. And this is why I've had to lay boundaries between myself and my loved ones, because of the boundaries that were being crossed. If these boundaries are crossed, then it's our responsibility to tend to them. We use our masculine energy to do this. And there's a number of different tools that we can do in order to practice setting healthy boundaries to get better and better at it. Please don't assume, oh, we have a visitor. Please don't assume that you'll get this right away. It does take time, it does take practice, and setting boundaries, even understanding what boundaries are, is not something that our culture has really taught us. So I do have another episode on the Penthouse perspective talking about boundaries. But in addition to that, I'm going to be doing a workshop really soon. If you want details, please send me an email at LynetteLinda.com, and I will make sure that you're on the list for the details. We will be talking deeper about boundaries, about special relationships, about all of these things, okay? So when it comes to boundaries, they have to be set. So if someone says, if one has to set boundaries and they can't be avoided, how does it work? It means you work it. You have to do it. You're going to have to learn how to set these boundaries. If you don't, then the farther that we ignore the need for the boundaries, the farther that ignorance goes, the deeper the problem's going to get. Okay. So one of my expressions is, you don't have to ride a garbage truck all the way to the dump to know that that's where it's headed. I'm really clear about boundaries. I don't struggle with them very often, but I'm always learning and growing. For me, as soon as I notice that somebody's crossed a boundary, which defines us, our boundaries define us, what we're comfortable with, what we're not comfortable with. As soon as I see that somebody is crossing one of the basic fundamental boundaries, they're physically abusive, emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, I lay a boundary immediately. When it comes to some of the other boundaries, which may be personal taste and choice, I'm going to be more open, and I may share those boundaries gently, if I can, with that person and let them know that this is a personal boundary. So for example, for me, I'm allergic to seafood. We could call that a personal boundary. Okay, so I don't eat seafood. Why? Because I'll go into anaphylactic shock. So I let my friends know that I don't eat seafood. But if I meet somebody new, they may not know that, okay, and want to go out for sushi, in which case I have to say, it's a personal boundary. It's easy when it comes to stuff like that. It gets more challenging when it comes to things like, please don't speak to me that way, or I can't tolerate the way that you interact. This isn't an equal and reciprocal relationship, okay? These are all boundaries that we individually choose. So for me, I have a boundary that says, if this relationship is not reciprocal, or at least most of the time, because, there's going to be times where there's give and take, then I will back away from that relationship, provided that it's with an adult. If it's with a child, then I'm obviously going to cut the child a lot more slack, and I'm going to be willing to be much more flexible with the boundary. Again, these are really deep subjects that we can't answer all in one session. And they're also not subjects that we're going to master overnight. So I encourage you to keep at it. And remember, please always go to the guide inside. You will get everything that you need when you connect with the guide inside. Intuitively, you will be given and gifted what you need. Baby steps, taking the next step forward. The fact that you're asking questions about what love really is and what healthy boundaries look like, is a really, really positive sign. And that is also showing you, the divine grace never takes you anywhere that it can't guide you and protect you. So when the questions start to rise up as a part of our nature to learn who and what we are, as a part of the process for those questions to rise up, the universe meets us. The universe meets us to answer those questions. It will meet us in the dream state with hunches, with intuition, with gut feelings. So start to tune in, and you might set an intention and say something like, please show me where boundaries are being transgressed. And start to pay attention to your feeling body, which I call the scoreboard. I encourage, if you haven't reviewed yet, my book, mathemagical.com, I encourage you to do that, because I go into these subjects in much greater depth. It's in podcast format, so you can break it down and listen to it at your own speed. So boundaries, love, all these questions rising up, that's a really good sign. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, okay? And when I work with parents and they're asking things like, well, when should I start to answer some of these questions that my children are asking? And the answer is, well, if the child is asking the question, then it's time for the answer. So if you're asking the question, don't worry, the universe knows, and the universe is going to get you what you need. Okay, so I'm going to take a question from the chat. If somebody wants to throw one in, please be patient. We'll take a few questions from there and go forward. What do you got for me?
When you grow up not experiencing unconditional love, it is very difficult as an adult to accept and understand unconditional love. What are some steps we can take to help us move into this kind of space?
Okay, well, that's your life's journey. Okay, our purpose here, all of us actually share the same purpose. Our purpose is to master energy and emotion. And when we have come to know how to master energy and emotion, not think, not believe, know how to master energy and emotion, it will be because we've done the inner journey. We've come to love ourselves. At this current space and time, as I said earlier, most people did not grow up in an unconditionally loving world. So we need to start to practice that love towards ourselves. And we eventually come to a place where we see that those that did not love us unconditionally were actually our greatest teachers, providing us with opportunities to learn to love ourselves. I can think of some of the people that were terrifically abusive towards me in my childhood. And I've come to a place within myself where I can say, thank you. Thank you for being such a good teacher, because it gave me the opportunity to be a good student. The more challenging the lesson, if the student wishes, the greater the opportunity to rise up and really master the subject. So again, I encourage you, go inside, start to practice loving self-care towards yourself. And one of the things that we could start to say is, practice being your own best friend. Or for anybody who's had a child, practice being towards yourself the way that you would be towards your child. And you might also find that the way that you are towards yourself, typically this is true, is the way that we are towards our children. I certainly know that until I'd start to overcome some of my challenges, the wounds from my childhood, I projected them onto my children. And I will continue to the end of my days to be available and present for my children to help them transcend those wounds that I unconsciously inflicted, which were also unconsciously inflicted upon me. So one of the stages for moving away from the childhood wounding is to understand that it's not done deliberately. I realize that it may look like that. I certainly know that the person who was whipping me in my childhood thought that they were doing what was best for me, that this was someone who thought that that was what I needed. So at an conscious level, at the egoic level, okay, this person was living exclusively in the mind and thinking that this was what needed to be done. So I understand at that level, the person thought that they were doing what was the right thing. But at a higher level of awareness, it wasn't. So in order to move forward, we need to be able to forgive those that transgressed those sacred boundaries when we were innocent children. We need to understand that at one level, they were conscious of it. And don't worry, they will be held responsible for this the same as we will be. But at another level, they didn't know what they were doing. They were not conscious. Okay? Once we awaken, once we remember who and what we are, that awakening process shows us that anytime we're unkind, we're actually out of balance. Anytime we project onto another or inwardly inflict pain, that we're essentially acting out our wounds and that we're out of balance. So remember, please, in these incredibly challenging times that we're in, please remember this. Shadow, pain, suffering, evil, negativity is the absence of light. You are the light. Bring the light. Remember who you are. Go to the guide inside and call on it to release you from the pain, to release you from the mindsets, from the ideas and the programming that says that you were a victim in your childhood. You are not a victim. You are a divine, eternal being, mastering energy and emotion within the 3D human experience. It is your purpose to transcend a lack of love, remember who you are, and transmute those situations to love. One of the old expressions I remember my grandmother using was saying, turn a sow's ear into a silk purse. That's what we're here to do. By mastering energy and emotion, by holding space for those emotions that will rise up, those hurt feelings, the feelings of pain, and they're there. Be your own best friend. Allow yourself to feel these feelings and witness them in the way that you were not witnessed as a child. And from there, you will be able to begin to release these hard, hurtful feelings and automatically start to rise up to the truth of who and what you are. In each layer that we move upwards, in each dimension, in each epiphany, we let go of the pain and the suffering, and we become freer and freer and freer. It's also very helpful to remember that we live many, many lifetimes. And we will bring forward from our past lifetimes anything that we did not resolve. This is called karma. So if there's lessons for us to learn that we did not complete in previous lifetimes, then they will present themselves in this lifetime. This is one of the ways that we can understand the cruelty that is inflicted upon the seemingly innocent. We need to remember that everything, there are no exceptions. Everything happens in divine order. So I would also say that the abuse that was inflicted upon me when I was a child was something that I needed to experience, and was very likely a karmic debt that I had, perhaps because I'd inflicted that on someone else in a previous lifetime. I also learned from it, and I didn't hit my children. Okay, I'll take the next question now. I hope that answers your question.
Like attracts like, but in the current situation we are in, oftentimes we find ourselves attracting conflict when we speak up. Why do we attract people now who demand we live a certain way?
Oh, really good question. Okay, like does attract like. Now, when we're manifesting something in the material level, okay, say we're moving towards manifesting a car and we don't have all the money that we need in order to get that car. We're going to save up our money. It's going to take time, and we understand that we're going to have to go through some of those difficult times saving our money, if that's the way that you're going to go about it, saving our money in order to get to that point where we finally have our car. Well, right now, humanity is going through that releasing process. It's going through that transitory process. Everything that has been hidden from us, the lies that we've been programmed into buying into, like saying that we aren't complete and whole in ourselves, that we don't deserve love, all those kinds of BS lies, okay? We have to understand where they are first. And we also have to come to understand who's buying into these lies, okay? So the hidden is being revealed, and the unseen is becoming seen. So as we are rising up in consciousness, moving towards our goal of unity, we must clear out that which has been secretly hidden, the dire, the dirty, the nasty, the shadow. We must bring the light to it. So it's like a purging process. To be very, very graphic, I could say it would be like a very infected wound. A surgeon will have to alleviate the pressure, the pus from the wound in order to heal the wound. So very dramatically put, that's what humanity is going through right now. So at the individual level, what you will find is that as we are going through the process of coming to know whether we are honored by the company we keep, okay, we will go through relationship by relationship an experience of seeing whether it is a dissonant or a resonant energy. So if you are somebody that has practiced being loving, and it sounds like you are, then you are now going to have to recognize in each one of your relationships what was hidden and what was unseen. If that person is not actually able to love you as we're rising up, this essentially becomes a bit of the wound that needs to be released, the pus that needs to be released, or we will heal it and move forward with that person. So while people are trying to push us into doing things that we don't want to do, it's also giving us an opportunity to practice the tools to sovereignty, to becoming a sovereign being, which is to lay boundaries. My body, my choice. Okay, we're allowed to say this, but most of us don't know that yet. So each time a challenge comes your way, each time someone comes your way that seems to be the polar opposite of your desire, understand that you are releasing that which you do not desire so that you can move towards that which you do desire. Okay. And it takes time. Humanity is going through this now at the collective level. It's a little bit like going through the process when you have a certain kind of friend in high school. And then by the time you finish high school and you go out into the real world, you'll find that a lot of those friends really don't suit you anymore. You've grown past them. That's what's happening. You're being given a chance. You're being given a choice to say, do I resonate with this? Am I going to hold a boundary here? Am I going to hold space? Am I going to take this relationship with me to the next level as I move into my, excuse me, as I move into my sovereignty? Okay, I hope that answers the question. Excuse me, if it didn't, please just set something in the chat and I'll make sure that I do answer it. Next question, please.
How do you shift your mindset when you're struggling and focusing just on negativity?
Okay, begin at the beginning. Baby steps, but do step. You first of all set the intention, and it sounds like you've already done that. You've set the intention that says, I want to move from a space of negative mindset thought to a space of positive mindset thought. Okay, you can start with doing things like a daily positivity journal. I call it a love list. daily writing out what you appreciate. Remember, appreciation oils the machine. The more we appreciate, like attracts like, the more we'll have to appreciate. Start to take stock of your life. What do you appreciate about your life? And if you feel like there's nothing to appreciate, then just start with the fact that you've got this beautiful life and that you've got nowhere to go but up. Start to put post-it notes around the house with positive mindsets, notes, and affirmations for yourself. Sit down and ask yourself, am I honored by the company I keep, what I eat, and where I sleep? Are the influences that you're allowing into your world, are your boundaries in place? Are you allowing influences, actions, choices, and people into your world that aren't serving a positive mindset? I know for myself, I am very clear in my boundaries about the people who spend time with me. And I am honored by the company I keep, or I don't spend time with them. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm asking for people or thoughts or things to be perfect. But what it means is that I'm consciously observing, I'm consciously discerning and choosing as I go forward in each step, each day, each relationship, each thought, each belief, whether or not it honors me. If it doesn't honor me, then I begin the practice of letting it go. If it does honor me, then I begin the practice of maintaining it, working at it, giving it attention so that it begins to expand. I hope that answers your question. Next one, please.
I panic when I think I may have crossed someone's boundary. If I wasn't told about the boundary, am I still liable for crossing it?
No, absolutely not. And this one buys into cancel culture, okay? And I have about 3 seconds patience for cancel culture because it's really just judgment on steroids. So you are feeling like the panic feeling is actually you loving too much, you could say, but it's coming from a really good place. So I'd like you to recognize that that panic feeling is coming from somebody who cares about the way they treat other people. So that's a really good thing. That's a wonderful foundation to begin with. The next thing that you want to start to recognize is that only the ego can be offended. And I'm going to say that again because this is a real deal breaker. Only the ego can be offended. All right. So if somebody comes towards me with what is very obviously perhaps aggressive, rude, boundary crossing behavior, I can choose to take offense to that rude, aggressive, boundary crossing behavior, which anybody would consider inappropriate, and waste my energy, take offense, waste my energy, and actually give that person my power. Okay. Because all of a sudden the way they treated me now affects me. Or I can lay a boundary and consider the source and recognize that somebody that's behaving in the way that is causing harm is somebody that's out of balance. I lay a boundary and I'm going to move away from this person. On the other hand, if you've said something that this person chooses to take offense to, then you have a choice to either feel responsible for what that person is choosing to feel, or to recognize that you did not set out to intend to offend this person. And like I discussed earlier about personal boundaries, I'm not going to be offended if somebody serves me sushi. If one of my friends serves me sushi, I might go, have we got a problem in the relationship? Is there something we need to talk about? That's just immaterial, okay? It's not that kind of boundary. If somebody's going to be offended, it is only their ego that has become offended. If you did not deliberately set out to offend them, then let it go. Let yourself off the hook. If you inadvertently offended them and didn't realize, you might say, well, I'm sorry that offended you, but don't feel bad. You have no cause to feel bad. And in fact, that would be a place where you might want to look at doing some inner work, increasing self-respect. If you didn't intend to hurt someone, then why on earth would you feel bad? If they chose to be offended, that is their choice to be offended. Even if someone was to come up to me and say, rah, 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 okay, like on 6 different levels, I'm still going to consider the source, not accept their pain body being projected all over me and say, well, maybe that person's having a bad day, but I'm not going to take that personally. Now, if somebody says something to us that triggers us, this is another thing, then we might want to take a look at it. Okay. So taking something personally and a trigger for me are 2 different things. If somebody says something to me that triggers me and causes me to become angry and defensive, then that's typically telling me that there's something true in what they said that I might want to look at. It doesn't mean, however, that they get the right to say this thing that could be true or reflection or something they've observed about me. It doesn't mean that they get licensed to say this in an unkind way. Okay, so watch out for that one. If you go about your day not intending to offend, and I don't intend to offend people, but I know I trigger people all the time. Why? Because I'm straight up. What you see is what you get. If I wasn't aware that that was a personal boundary, then please let me know. And by all means, if it's possible, I will respect that boundary. But if I didn't know that it was a boundary, then I can't help you. If I didn't know that I've offended you and now you've decided to take that and go inside and ruminate on it and feed on it and make it into a resentment that you now, turn into a monster, I'm not responsible for that. Okay. We have to become aware that we are responsible for what we let out and what we let in. If you are consciously choosing to release energy that is kind and loving and where you may lose balance, taking responsibility for it, there is nothing more that you can do. If somebody has decided to take offense by taking a message, a comment, or something that you've done and twisted it through their perception of the wounded victim, then there's nothing you can do about it. So don't beat yourself up. If you didn't intend to offend, it's their monkey, it's their zoo, it's not your problem. Okay? Next question, and then I'm going to do one of these.
When in both physical and mental pain, how do we move past the frustration and anger?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, frustration and anger, if we're in mental and physical pain, are signs that we're not accepting. And that can be incredibly challenging. And I know myself, I've been in incredible states of emotional, spiritual, you could say vibratory feeling pain, as well as incredible physical pain. Okay, so I'm going to deal with the easy one first, the physical pain. I had dengue fever when I was in the Bahamas a few years ago, and dengue fever affects the nervous system. So my entire body was in pain every minute of every day. And I remember I had 7 days straight of excruciating pain. And the only time that I got any sleep was when I literally passed out from the pain. Okay. And it was such a situation where I didn't have any medication. So what I did at that point was I practiced my meditation mantra after I accepted that I was in a state of pain. Now, the beautiful thing is that once I accepted that I was in a state of pain, it actually decreased the pain. Because our frustration and our anger will create resistance, and what you resist will persist because like attracts like. So if we can come to accept that the physical experience includes physical and emotional pain at times, then we will immediately release the degree of that pain, at least a little bit, okay? And often by quite a bit. When it comes to emotional pain, okay, well, physical pain, please seek obviously medical help, whatever that you can do. I really encourage naturopathic remedies because then there's no excess symptoms or additional symptoms due to the medications that pharmaceuticals often come with. So seeking out natural remedies, which can restore homeostasis and balance so that you don't come back to this pain. Okay, physically, that's a whole another thing. Are you honored by the company you keep, what you eat, and where you sleep? That falls under loving self-care. So I don't want to miss that point. The other point is about the emotional pain. When it comes to emotional pain, it's telling us that we're out of balance. Okay, we're not wrong, we're not bad. Nobody is wrong or bad or good or right. These are polarizing beliefs. When we understand that emotional pain is a call for yourself to step up, take responsibility for what you're feeling, and begin to transmute it back to our purpose, to master energy and emotion. So when you take responsibility for that emotional pain and begin to practice loving self-care, the steps to self-love, the first one being, listen to your emotions. Listen to your feelings. What are they trying to tell you? Be your own best friend. Hold space for yourself. One of the practices that can be really helpful for this is journaling. Journal while you're in an emotional, frustrated, and angry state. Journal purge. Just literally purge on paper. Do not censor it. And then calm your mind down as much as you can. Calm yourself down as much as you can. You can use meditation and soothing music as 2 really quick ways to do it. I go outside. I go to the ocean. I go for a walk. Music, meditation, these are the tools that I use. And with practice, they become very powerful and very effective. Again, Rome wasn't built in a day. Practice those tools, tuning in, journaling, and then when you've calmed yourself down, come back and read what you've journaled. And you will be able to see for yourself in reflecting where your pain is, and you'll know where to start the transmutation process of being out of balance, in pain, in some form of suffering, to restore emotional balance. Okay. It's also very helpful to recognize that if we have not been listening at the energetic, spiritual, vibratory feeling level of the being that we truly are, remember, we're energy beings having a human experience. If we have not been living at the energetic level, honestly, openly, cleanly, and respectfully, then it starts to create dis-ease in the physical body. So emotional pain and physical pain often go hand in hand, because the physical body is actually energetically gathering up energy. It'll remain blocked up in the areas that store the energy related to the lesson that needs attention. So, for example, if we're having a lot of confusion and headaches, it'll often mean that we're living in the ego state of the logical mind too much, and we're confused. Confusion is the domain of the ego. And when we stay confused and tense, and the ego, the logical mind, is constantly circling, using its logical process to try to find answers. And that is not the way that it happens. We will use the logical process for part of it, but not for all of it. So if we're using too much of the logical mind, then we'll start to create tension in the head, confusion. And this will be your sign to let go. Okay. I will be talking in the future about the different energy centers in the body and what they store, what those energy centers are telling us. So, for example, the heart is a place that you might want to start to breathe light and love into. Start to imagine light coming into your heart as a part of releasing the frustration and anger that goes with physical and emotional pain. Okay. I hope that helps. I'm going to now talk about a question that was sent in by Elodie. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Do you think that making a wish is a way to play with our destiny, and can we get an answer? Something I've done while I was looking at a shooting star, and I think I received an answer. I always wondered whether any wish would come true just because I wished it, or if something guided me to go for that wish. Okay, well, it's a wonderful question, and I'm really glad that you asked it. We are here to master energy and emotion. We are creator gods. We are here through mastering energy and emotion, developing the ability to create whatever we desire in this physical reality. Okay, so to wish upon a star is a wonderful thing. Wishing upon a star, I think, is a bit of a whimsical thing, but it's a wonderful practice. Are we altering our destiny? Absolutely not. If the universe has decided that certain things need to happen for you in this physical reality, in this particular story, they will happen. The universe is going to constantly course correct. So if you've got a challenge and an opportunity for growth coming your way, you cannot dodge that bullet. The universe will find a way. Same token, if you've got a blessing and something wonderful coming your way, you really can't block that either. You can delay it, and you may want to sabotage it, but it is going to eventually come. Okay. The lessons, however, seem to be able to find their way through to us more easily than the gifts. Excuse me. And I think that's because most of us believe that negative things can happen. We think that, oh yeah, sure, the negative can happen, but we don't make as much space for the wish upon the star to happen. So you can't alter your destiny. Destiny is the pre-charted waters that we must sail in order to fulfill our purpose of mastering energy and emotion. And the universe is in charge of that. So don't worry about it. How and when is always the universe's job. Our job is to show up, to embrace both the challenges and receive the gifts simultaneously. When we start to practice self-love, this gets easier and easier. And I have to say, in my own experience, that when I am pursuing something, when I am holding space for something that I desire to come into my reality, my experience, profound experience, has been that intuition will guide me, that you'll start to see synchronicity, signs that what you desire is coming in. Okay. And I have manifested, with the exception of one thing, I have manifested every single thing that I desire in this physical reality. I'm on my third bucket list. So yes, desire, desire, desire. One of the religions will tell you that desire is the root of suffering. No, it is not. Expectation is the root of suffering. Desire is actually what we're here to do. It keeps us manifesting and creating. Have you ever noticed that there was something that you wanted to, at some point, you wanted it so bad you could taste it, and then when you got it, it was like, meh, next, and you moved on to the next thing. This is what we're designed to do. So we're going to constantly desire new things, and that's absolutely okay. The challenge becomes, is what you're desiring for the greater good of all? Is it not going to harm any other, including you? Again, I'm going to go much deeper into this subject in my next workshop. Send me an email at lynettalinda.com if you wish to be a participant. So again, the subject is, yes, absolutely. Desire to your heart's content. In fact, write it down. We'll talk about spelling it another time. But no, you cannot alter your destiny. Whatever is meant to be, will be. The universe is alive, well, and running the show. Trust me, you cannot miss the boat. I hope that answers your question. I'm going to make space for another couple of questions on the chat, and then I'm going to come back to another question by Irene. Yes. Oh, we don't have any more questions at this point. Okay, great. So I'm going to come to Irene's question. How long are we at? How long have we been on the
40 minutes.
Okay, so I've got a question here from Irene. This question is, how can I stop myself from thinking that the worst is going to happen and having negative thoughts? Even though I'm usually a very positive person, I have to be strong right now because I'm supporting someone close to me who's going through a medical condition. I find it very hard and I can't hide my emotions. I feel scared that I will lose this person. How do I overcome this? Well, Irene, you have handed me an absolutely huge pile of opportunity here in terms of answering questions. So I'm going to break it down. The first piece that you said, how can I stop myself from thinking that the worst is going to happen and having negative thoughts? Well, that's a very human thing to do. One of the suggestions that I have is to play the whole tape forward. And when I say play the tape forward, it tells you how old I am, okay? When you play the whole tape forward, what I'm saying is, if we can come to a place where we can accept what we consider to be the worst case scenario, then you'll find that the rest of the negativity really becomes much more diffused from that point. When we feel that the worst case scenario is that we're going to lose this person, that this person may leave physical, it's a big one to accept. Okay, I'll give you an example. I knew 10 years prior to my mother's death that my mother was going to die. And that was really, really challenging because as far as I was concerned, my mother was the only one that loved me. And that meant that there wasn't going to be anybody else left on the earth that loved me. So for me, that was a huge worst case scenario to accept. But I did. I accepted it because I understand that life on earth is like a suicide mission. Nobody gets out alive. We all have to die of the physical body in order to transcend to our next experience. So understanding and accepting that nobody gets out alive is really important. We have to come to accept this. And when we do, the beauty of that is that each moment with that person becomes so delicious. Each moment with that person becomes so precious. And I would encourage many more people to begin to adopt the practice of recognizing that life is short, life is bittersweet, and that you never know how and when we're going to go. Many years ago, I had a physical experience myself, a death experience. I died and I came back. That's another story. But the thing that really stayed with me after that experience was that I was going in for a day surgery and I was supposed to be home by like 5 o'clock. And I left lasagna sitting on the counter, frozen lasagna I'd prepared earlier to feed my children when I got home from this day procedure. I died that day. I flatlined. And when I came home, the death experience is a whole other thing. When I came home that day and I had to throw the lasagna in the garbage because by then it had spoiled, it was many hours later. Turns out when you die, they keep you in the hospital for a little while for observation. When I came home, I had to throw it out. And I realized that that could have been the last time I'd ever prepared dinner for my children. And what a beautiful and sacred event it would have become. And from that moment forward, for me, there are no mundane tasks. Because each and every moment I understand may be my last. Because I'll tell you what, that day many years ago, I did not put it on my schedule, pencil it in to die that day, and I wasn't prepared. So I urge you, as a part of the bittersweet pill to accept, is that the worst case scenario is inevitable for all of us. And one of my next podcasts on the Penthouse Perspective is going to be about death. Because we must come to understand and to accept that bittersweet pill. The negative thoughts that can go with it are inevitable. And this is where I encourage spiritual practice, positive music, getting yourself that loving self-care for support, maintaining awareness of your own emotions and understanding that while you also want to be holding space for this loved one, feeling like the emotions are going to overwhelm you, this is where you must practice loving self-care. You must give yourself the space and time to honor your emotions. Your loved one may be the one going through the physical challenge, but you do love them. And when we are in a bond of love, we travel through those challenges with our loved ones. I certainly know when somebody I love is struggling. I really, really struggle myself. In fact, I said to someone today, I said, can you please take care of these things? Because if you don't take care of these things, then I'm going to be concerned. And I'm going to have to use my energy to be concerned for you because you're not taking care of you. Okay? So we're in that bond together. Give yourself the space and time to take care of your own emotions. Purge. Okay? I recommend the shower for that, long walks. Give yourself the space. You do need to be strong. Yes, you do need to be strong, Irene, but at the same time, you're not invincible and you're not perfect. And I cannot stress this enough, and I don't think I say this enough. Ask for the help. Go to the guide inside. Go to the stillness and pray for divine grace to guide you, your loved ones, to protect you and your loved ones. And you will never, never be disappointed or let down by divine grace if you sincerely ask for that protection. I could give you so many stories to prove that one. So many stories, please. But don't believe me. I might be the biggest liar on the planet. Try it for yourself, okay? Find it very hard to hide your emotions. Yes. Yes. It will be hard to hide your emotions, but it can also be really beautiful to hide our emotions for that person to see how much that you care and that you continue to stand by their side and go through this with them in spite of that. Some of my loved ones are struggling very much right now, and I can't even be in physical proximity with them. Regardless of this, okay? I pray for them from a distance every single day. If one of my loved ones is out there listening to this, I guarantee you, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for guidance, support, and ease and flow for you every single day. Ask first for yourself because you can't give from an empty well. And then once you've given to yourself, you will be capable of giving to another. Okay? I hope that answers your question, Irene. Do we have another question? Okay, so I apologize, guys, if I've talked really fast, but that's how the information moves through me. I will be doing this again, and of course, you're going to be able to go on and listen to this again once it's once it's done its thing. Again, I'm not a techie. Thank God for techies. And I would like to thank you all for sending in your questions. Please do send in more. I will be doing another live show, hopefully next week. If not, then I'm going to get as many others in between as I can. And if you go to the Koji link in my bio on Instagram, you'll be able to ask personal questions, which I believe there's a window of 10 minutes for, which I would be I welcome and I'm happy to do because some of these questions that I've received are too personal to be done live for public consumption. Okay, so we want to remain respectful of boundaries. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Please remember, we are all in this together. It is always darkest before the dawn. Go to the guide inside. Remember who you really are and watch your challenges transcend. You will transmute and move beyond. I guarantee it. With great love. See you next time. Still on. We're not done. Okay.
Doesn't want to let go of you.
That's okay. Got the power. Wow. This is amazing. It won't disconnect. It will not allow us to stop. This is quite interesting. I don't know if you guys can still see us. We're not quite sure, actually. There's something happening here technologically that I do not understand. It would appear that I'm not supposed to leave. Does anybody have a question? I don't know if the chat is still going. If the chat is still going, can we see the chat?
I can get the chat back here.
Okay. I don't know if anybody's still there. There must be something to this. Oh, you guys are still there. Okay. Well, I don't know why I can't leave. Does somebody have a burning question? Am I being kept online for some reason? If there's a question, please send it in right now and my PA will help me with it.
Okay, go on.
Oh, there is a question. Okay. Thank you. Now watch the feed stop. Okay. Let's go back. The question.
What do you suggest people use for self-exploration to learn about themselves? Do you believe in birth charts, Enneagram?
Enneagrams. Yeah.
What are your suggestions?
Well, I would encourage somebody who wants to gain more awareness about themselves to follow your nose. What interests you? Okay, so if we take, for example, astrology. Astrology is not an exact science, but I do think that there's a lot of truth in astrology. So if you want to explore astrology, by all means, explore astrology, and you will find that there are certain qualities and characteristics about your astrological sign that you find are true about who you are. Another great tool for self-exploration is journaling. Get to know journaling, and when we're getting to know when we're practicing journaling in astrology, okay, we're not actually getting to know who we really are. Who we really are is a divine immortal having a human experience. So what you're talking about is getting to know, I think, please correct me through the chat if I'm wrong, is your personality. And our personality is actually something that's constantly evolving and constantly developing. So if we're saying, I want to get to know who I am, that's going to be really tricky because getting to know who you are is somebody who's changing every single minute of every single day. We're not the same person from one moment to the next. So if you want to ask the question, how to get to know who I really am, self-exploration for me would be to come to remember who and what we really are. And one of the fastest ways to do that, from my experience, is meditation. To be in the stillness, to start practicing being alone. Many people are afraid of being alone. They don't want to be with themselves and they've constantly got distractions going on. So that's a really great place to start. Please remember that as soon as we set an intention, the universe will immediately start to bring the tools, the teachers, the resources that we need in order to fulfill that intention, especially if your intention, which could also be called your desire, your wish, your want, your need, is for the greater good of all. If it is for the greater good of all, then not only are you going to get the tools, the guidance, and the support that you need, but you're going to get it with a red carpet and some miracles along the way, and some magic, I'd like to say, which are really miracles. But it's absolutely going to be an inward journey, this process of coming to know who you really are. So your personality is not who you really are. Those are your likes and your dislikes. That's the collection of programming that you've received and the choices, the total of choices that you've made. Who you really are is an energy being having a human experience. And that is a journey that you will be on for all of eternity, because that being is also constantly expanding, constantly growing and changing, but not changing in the sense of good and bad and right and wrong, changing in the sense of becoming greater and greater who and what you are, becoming to a degree more and more of who and what you are. We are the truth. We are made of love. We are actually made of compassion, patience, tolerance, wisdom, kindness, the attributes that many of the religions teach us that we want to seek. We don't want to seek them. We want to be them, to become them. And by being them, we become those qualities. And then you will know who and what you really are, because who and what you really are is a combination of those qualities. The personality is what most of us think is who we really are. It's not. It's the separate experience that you're having. One of the ways that you could look at it really easily would be to say, for an actor, to say, I want to find out who I am, but they are trying to explore the character that they're playing. And that character is going to constantly be changing. So in order to, and that's not even really who they are, it's just a role that they're playing. The actor would then say, if I want to get to know who I really am, they would get to know who they are as the actor behind the scenes. Okay, so your personality is not who you really are. That's your programming, your tastes, your likes, your dislikes. Who and what you really are is a divine immortal being made of love, compassion, patience, tolerance, wisdom, discernment. Okay, start to be those qualities and you will start to know who and what you really are. If somebody said to me, who are you? I would say, I am a divine immortal being human. And the sound that they use to address me is Lynette. And if you want to ask me who Lynette is, then I'm going to give you a list of her tastes, her choices, her personality characteristics. Okay, I hope that answers the question, or at least gets you going in the right direction. Meditation, journaling, self-reflection, taking time to be alone. These are all traits. These are all qualities. These are all characteristics, attributes that'll move you forward. Okay?
To learn to love myself, I need to be okay with me physically. Do you have suggestions on getting comfortable with my voice and face?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. You're a one-time work of art. If somebody handed you the Mona Lisa, the one and only Mona Lisa, you would consider it to be priceless, to be absolutely beautiful. Now, I don't really dig the Mona Lisa. It's just not my thing. But I do appreciate that some people give it a great deal of value. So until you actually value yourself to be that unique one-time work of art, whether anybody else regards you as that beautiful, unique one-time work of art, nobody will. Again, let's practice self-love. Start to talk to yourself in gentle and loving, kind ways. And what you'll actually discover is that you will begin to physically transform. Okay? So if you're talking about qualities about your visage, your face that you don't like, then you want to ask yourself whether or not what you don't like about yourself is because you've decided to take on society's perspective of what attractive is. Okay? So from my perspective, if we look at the cookie cutter model of what is supposed to be beautiful, I'm not attracted to that. I don't find that attractive. What I find attractive is a powerful heart and a strong and clear mind. And as I focus on somebody who's got a powerful heart and a strong and clear mind, gosh darn if that person doesn't start to become more and more and more attractive to me. I can think of a relationship I was in many years ago, and this person was, by all society standards, considered to be very attractive. Okay, I had many women say to me, wow, okay. And when I was first getting to know this person, I couldn't decide whether or not I thought they were attractive. When I started to see them exhibit being kind and open, these kinds of qualities, I started to go, maybe, yeah, he's kind of cute. Well, and then I grew to think that he was very attractive as I began to fall into the state of love with him. Conversely, when he decided to leave the state of love with himself, he fell out of love with himself, he fell out of love with me. And as I started to see the unkind characteristics that he then began to choose, I started to look at him physically and go, you're not so attractive. Actually, I'm starting to see that, this isn't appealing to me anymore. So what you'll discover is that how you feel about yourself emotionally, the idea that you hold about what your particular physical container is, the idea that you hold that says it isn't attractive if you're measuring it against society's standards, is going to hold you back. Each one of us is a unique work of art. No two of us is alike. If somebody doesn't like the way you look, release them, let them go. And what they're actually telling you is that deep inside of themselves, they don't love themselves. I cannot be in love with someone. I cannot be attracted to someone unless they're attracted to and in love with themselves. This is true for all of us. The challenging part is recognizing right now that that is true for most people. That even when we've got beautiful, healthy, unique temples, gifts from the divine source, these miracle meat suit temples we're walking around in, we continue to harshly criticize and condemn it because it doesn't meet society's model. That would be the first thing that I would challenge. And if you don't like your voice, you might want to start to look at where your voice is projecting from. I know that if I'm angry, I do not like the sound of my own voice. I know that if I'm coming from the heart, I like the sound of my own voice. If I'm being unkind, my voice changes. It no longer comes from my heart, which softens my voice. It starts to come from my throat, which makes my voice harder because the heart's been removed from it. So again, back to, you are a unique work of art. No one has ever appeared in human form like you ever before, nor will then anyone ever appear the same again. So start to appreciate that you're a unique work of art, and that most of society's ideas about what's attractive, in my opinion, is just dumb and is not actually attractive. So start to work on self-love. Start to appreciate the qualities that you've got going for you on an internal level, and you'll start to see that you can appreciate the external as well. Are you kind? Are you loving? Do you show up for yourself? Are you intelligent? Are you capable? What do you know how to do? Make a list of all the things that you know how to do, from boil an egg to play a guitar. I don't care. Start to appreciate yourself. Appreciation oils the machine, and appreciation is the predecessor to unconditional acceptance. which is true love. I hope that helps. Another question?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, there are no more questions. So I'm going to let you go and we will end this episode and see you next time. Hopefully we can let go. I'm not sure if I should do a song and dance, play a drum, tap. I don't know. Look forward to seeing you guys next time.